Welcome to the Architect of Sleep channel. Today, we will journey into the silent kingdom of the seabed, where light gives way to mystery, and time flows like dense, salty water. This is a journey into a world that begins where the sun's rays end. We will descend to the very bottom of the world's ocean, into the cradle of life, which holds the secrets of billions of years. We will see landscapes no human eye has ever seen and meet creatures woven from darkness and cold light. This is not just a dive. It is a meditation on the theme of eternity, silence, and the incredible hidden beauty of our planet. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, I invite you to leave a like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here, one sleepy soul after another. And now, just breathe. Allow your eyes to grow heavy and your mind to soften. Let us begin. Imagine a place where day slowly dissolves into eternal twilight, not yielding to night, but simply fading into the deep blue. This is the twilight zone of the ocean, the mesopelagic, beginning at a depth of about 200 meters. Only 1% of sunlight penetrates here, a ghostly, scattered light, insufficient for photosynthesis, but enough to draw the faint silhouettes of moving shadows. Here, the inhabitants of this world are accustomed to living on the edge of light and darkness, in a space where shadows are longer and denser than any objects that cast them. It is a world of hints, a world of halftones, where sight gives way to other, more subtle senses. And with each meter of descent, this last glimmer of the world above becomes but a memory, a precious speck of light in the advancing abyss. But where the sun fades, life itself learns to ignite its own stars. Bioluminescence is a cold, living light, born from chemical reactions in the bodies of deep-sea creatures, silent and without warmth. This is not merely decoration, but a vital language of the darkness, spoken by millions of creations. They use it to lure prey, to scare off predators, to communicate in the impenetrable gloom, creating fleeting constellations and signal lights. Flashes of light pierce the darkness like Morse code, transmitting messages of life, danger, and procreation in a world that has never seen a dawn. Each flicker is a thought expressed in light, a tiny beacon in the endless ocean of silence, flashing, and then immediately extinguishing. Sometimes this light serves not for communication, but for defense, transforming into a living shield. Some species of squid and shrimp, when attacked, release not an ink cloud, but a luminous one. This bright firework display blinds and disorients the predator, giving the victim precious seconds to escape into the gloom. While the attacker tries to understand what has happened, its eyes adjust to the flash, rendering it temporarily blind in the darkness. This is a tactic known as sacrificial light, where the cloud of light becomes a decoy, distracting from the true target. Thus, darkness is used against darkness, and light becomes a weapon of deception, a fleeting illusion of escape. These fleeting lights illuminate a landscape woven from falling organic matter known as marine snow. It is a slow, continuous dance of dead particles sinking from the upper, sunlit layers of the ocean to the very bottom. Fish scales, plankton remains, pollen from distant continents, and even cosmic dust all swirl slowly through the water column, taking weeks and months to complete their journey. This snowfall feeds entire ecosystems in the dark, serving as the only link between the world of light and the world of darkness. Every centimeter of the seabed is covered by a centuries-old layer of this quiet gift from the heavens, the underwater heavens. Thus, life above nourishes life below, in an eternal cycle of fall and rebirth. This eternal snowfall descends into a world where pressure builds with relentless force, compressing everything around. At the depth of the Mariana Trench, the pressure exceeds 1,000 atmospheres, equivalent to the weight of 50 airliners placed on the area of a postage stamp. However, life here does not just exist, it thrives in this unimaginable embrace. Organisms inhabiting such depths have developed incredible adaptations. Their bodies consist almost entirely of water, making them virtually incompressible. Inside their cells are special organic molecules, piezolytes, which protect cellular structures from destruction. They do not fight the pressure. They have become a part of it, an embodiment of harmony with their environment. In this compressed silence, sound travels completely differently than on the surface, becoming the primary sense. Water, being much denser than air, conducts sound 4.5 times faster and over much greater distances, with almost no distortion. Deep in the ocean, there exists the so-called SOFAR sound channel, where, due to a unique combination of temperature and pressure, sound can travel for thousands of kilometers with almost no loss. A whale's song, sung off the coast of Japan, can be heard off the coast of California. The ocean floor is not a world of silence, but a vast resonator where the whisper of one part of the planet becomes audible to another. It is a world that must not be seen, but listened to with one's entire being. And what we hear in this resonator are the voices of giants, such as sperm whales, which hunt in these dark waters. To find their prey, the elusive giant squid, sperm whales use the most powerful echolocation in the animal kingdom. They produce a series of clicks so loud they could deafen a person if they were nearby. These sound waves pierce the water column, reflect off the prey, and return to the whale, painting a detailed acoustic map of the surrounding darkness in its mind. The sperm whale sees with its ears. Its world is a symphony of echoes, vibrations, and reflections. It is a blind musician, playing on the strings of the abyss itself. The sperm whale's prey, the giant squid, is itself a miracle of adaptation, a phantom from the depths shrouded in legend. Its eyes, the largest in the animal kingdom, reach the size of a dinner plate, like portholes into another world. Such enormous organs of sight are needed not to see in absolute darkness, but to detect the faintest flashes of bioluminescence, light that betrays the movement of a predator or prey at a great distance. The squid's eye is not a window to the world, but a sensitive telescope tuned to find a single photon of light in the pitch-black night. It sees not objects, but their luminous souls, their fleeting sparks of life flashing in the darkness. But in the depths, there is a creature even more massive than the giant squid, the colossal squid, the master of the icy Antarctic waters. It is not longer, but significantly heavier than its counterpart, a true heavyweight among invertebrates. Its main weapon is not mere suckers, but tentacles studded with swiveling, razor-sharp hooks capable of inflicting deep wounds. The clashes between sperm whales and colossal squids are titanic battles that take place in complete darkness, which we only learn about from the scars on the whales' bodies. It is a duel of strength and cunning, an ancient war invisible to the world above, but etched into the wounds of its participants. When giants like whales end their life's journey, their bodies sink to the bottom, creating a unique ecosystem known as a whale fall. The enormous carcass becomes an oasis of life in the desert of the abyssal plain, a feast that can last for a century. Thousands of organisms flock to this feast in a strict sequence. First come the sharks and hagfish, then the crustaceans and worms. The last to arrive are chemosynthetic bacteria, which feed on the sulfides released during the decomposition of the bones. A single whale skeleton can support an entire community for decades, becoming a monument and a cradle for hundreds of species. Among the first to arrive at this feast are the hagfish, some of the most ancient vertebrates on the planet. These eel-like creatures have no jaws, but possess a unique defense mechanism. When threatened, they secrete a huge amount of slime, which turns into a thick, sticky gel upon contact with water. In a fraction of a second, a single hagfish can fill a bucket with this substance, clogging the gills of an attacking shark and forcing it to retreat. This primordial slime is liquid armor, a fluid shield, a reminder that nature's most effective solutions are often the strangest and simplest. After the soft tissues have been consumed, the true bone disposal specialists, the Osedax worms, take the stage. These creatures, also known as zombie worms, have neither a mouth nor an intestine. The females burrow into the whale bones, extending root-like structures that secrete acid, dissolving the bone tissue. Inside these roots live symbiotic bacteria that process fats and proteins, nourishing the worm. The males, however, are microscopic and live inside the female's body, serving only for fertilization. This is a life that literally feeds on death, continuing the cycle where it seemed everything had already ended. Besides the remains of giants, the ocean floor is also strewn with other treasures. Manganese nodules. These are mysterious, almost perfect spheres of manganese and iron oxides that grow with unimaginable slowness, like the fruits of an invisible garden. Over 1 million years, such a nodule grows by only a few millimeters, absorbing metals from the seawater layer by layer around a microscopic core, a shark's tooth, or a grain of sand. They lie on the abyssal plains like a harvest planted by time. Each such sphere is a geological chronicle, holding information about the composition of the ancient ocean and the planet's climate. They are silent clocks, measuring out the epochs. The abyssal plains, where these concretions rest, are the flattest and smoothest surfaces on Earth. They cover more than half of our planet, representing vast underwater deserts of silt and clay that stretch to the horizon. This apparent emptiness is deceptive. The silt here is an archive of planetary history, composed of the microscopic skeletons of plankton, volcanic ash, and cosmic dust, accumulated over millions of years. If we could read these layers like the pages of a book, we would learn about every volcanic eruption, every ice age, and every change in the ocean's chemistry. It is the largest library on Earth, written in the language of time. But not all of the seabed is so calm and flat. In places, it is cut by giant submarine canyons, surpassing the Grand Canyon on land in scale. They are not created by rivers, but by turbidity currents, powerful avalanches of sand, silt, and water that break off from the continental shelf and rush down the slope at speeds of up to 100 kilometers per hour. These currents, denser than the surrounding water, are capable of smoothing rocks and carrying enormous boulders for hundreds of kilometers. They are the invisible sculptors of the seabed, creating grandiose landscapes in complete darkness and silence. Their roar has never been heard. Where tectonic plates collide, the seabed splits open, forming hydrothermal vents known as black smokers. These are underwater geysers, erupting water superheated to 400 degrees Celsius and saturated with minerals. This water, black from iron sulfides and other metals, instantly precipitates these minerals upon contact with the ice-cold ocean water. This is how tall chimneys, up to 60 meters high, are created, resembling the smokestacks of an abandoned city. Around these toxic, scorching vents, life teems, but a life based not on sunlight, but on the energy from the Earth's interior. Chemosynthesis. Around the black smokers, live creatures that seem like aliens from another planet. Giant tube worms, Riftia, have neither a mouth nor a digestive system. They live in symbiosis with bacteria that reside inside their bodies in a special organ. With its bright red plume, the worm absorbs hydrogen sulfide from the water, a deadly poison for most living things, and delivers it to the bacteria. The bacteria, in turn, oxidize the hydrogen sulfide and produce organic matter that nourishes their host. This is a life built on poison, a hymn to adaptation in the most extreme conditions. Near the Riftia, one can find the Pompeii worm, the most heat-tolerant animal on the planet. It lives directly on the walls of the black smokers, withstanding temperatures of up to 80 degrees Celsius. Its secret lies in a fleece of symbiotic bacteria that covers its body. This bacterial mantle serves as both thermal insulation and, possibly, even as food, which the worm periodically scrapes off. The worm sticks its head into cooler water to breathe, while its tail is in near-boiling water. It is a child of two worlds, the fiery and the icy, existing on the edge of the possible. Not all hydrothermal vents are so hot and turbulent. There are also white smokers, which spew cooler water rich in barium, calcium, and silicon. These minerals, as they precipitate, create fragile white towers resembling limestone castles or frozen waterfalls. One of the most famous of these fields, the Lost City, consists of giant carbonate columns up to 60 meters high. It has existed for tens of thousands of years, and scientists believe that it was in such alkaline, warm vents, rather than in the acidic black smokers, that the first life on Earth could have originated. Far from these fiery oases, in the icy silence, other sources of life exist. Cold seeps. These are places where methane and hydrogen sulfide slowly seep from the seabed, like the breath of a sleeping planet. Here, too, unique ecosystems based on chemosynthesis are formed. Bacteria that feed on methane form dense mats, on which, in turn, other organisms such as crabs and snails graze. These communities exist in complete darkness, feeding on gas that rises from the Earth's interior. This is further proof that life finds a way where, it would seem, there is nothing but cold and darkness. One of the most amazing phenomena associated with methane is methane hydrates, or flammable ice. At great depths, under low temperatures and high pressure, water molecules form a crystalline lattice, inside of which, as if in a cage, methane molecules are trapped. Outwardly, it resembles ordinary ice, but if you set it on fire, it will burn with a bright orange flame, releasing gas and meltwater. The reserves of this ice on the seabed are colossal and exceed all known reserves of coal, oil, and natural gas combined. It is a sleeping energy giant, slumbering beneath the water column. Sometimes, due to underwater landslides or rising temperatures, these hydrates can become unstable and explosively release methane. Huge bubbles of gas rush to the surface, creating boiling cauldrons in the ocean and reducing the density of the water. Scientists suggest that such methane releases could have been the cause of some mysterious disappearances of ships and aircraft, as well as playing a role in past global climate changes by sharply increasing the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. The ocean floor breathes, and its breath can change the world above. The breath of the ocean also manifests in the form of brine pools, or brine lakes, on the seabed. These are unique formations where the water is so salty that it becomes much denser than the surrounding water and does not mix with it, forming a clear boundary, like the shoreline of an underwater lake. These lakes can have their own waves and currents. For most marine life, contact with this brine is lethal. It kills them instantly due to its toxicity and lack of oxygen. But on the shores of these underwater lakes, chemosynthetic communities thrive, adapted to extreme conditions, living on the edge of death. The deepest living fish also live in these extreme conditions. Snailfish from the family Leparidae. They have been discovered at depths of more than 8 kilometers in the Mariana Trench, where the pressure would crush any bathyscaphe. Their bodies are gelatinous, almost transparent, without scales, and with soft, underdeveloped bones. This structure allows them to withstand colossal pressure not by resisting it, but by letting it pass through them. They seem fragile and delicate, but in reality, they are some of the most resilient creatures on the planet, the true masters of the abyss, soaring through it like ghosts. But even the abyss has its predators, and one of the most famous is the anglerfish, or sea devil, the embodiment of the darkness's cunning. The female anglerfish carries a luminous lure on her head, a fishing rod, or esca, on the tip of which live symbiotic bioluminescent bacteria. In the absolute darkness, this little light attracts small fish and crustaceans directly to the predator's enormous maw. It is a perfect trap, created by evolution for a world where food is scarce and every opportunity must be seized. The light that should offer hope here becomes a harbinger of doom. The male anglerfish, in turn, is an example of extreme sexual dimorphism and self-sacrifice. He is tens or even hundreds of times smaller than the female and leads a completely different lifestyle. His sole purpose is to find a female in the endless darkness, navigating by her pheromones. When he finds her, he bites into her body with his teeth and, over time, literally fuses with her, becoming an appendage. His circulatory system connects with hers, and he becomes merely a source of sperm, completely dependent on the female for nutrition. This is the ultimate form of self-sacrifice for the sake of procreation in the dark. In these same dark depths dwells the vampire squid, a living fossil, a relic of ancient eras. Its name is deceptive. It does not drink blood, but is a peaceful gatherer. It is covered by a webbing that connects its tentacles, giving it the appearance of a cloak. In case of danger, it turns this cloak inside out, covering its body and exposing spines and glowing photophores, disorienting the predator. But its most surprising feature is its diet. It collects marine snow using two long, sticky filaments that it extends from its body. It is not a predator, but a peaceful gatherer in a world of eternal night. Another ghostly creature of the depths is the barrel eye, or the fish with a transparent head, as if created by a glassblower. Its eyes are two green orbs located inside a transparent, fluid-filled dome on its head. These ultra-sensitive tubular eyes can rotate and look straight up through its own head, searching for the silhouettes of prey against the fading light of the twilight zone. When the fish finds a victim, it rotates its eyes forward and attacks. It is a living observatory, a floating telescope, constantly scanning the dark sky above, waiting for a star-like prey to fall. Pressure and darkness give rise to gigantism, as if nature is trying to compensate for the emptiness with size. Deep-sea gigantism is a phenomenon in which some species of crustaceans and other invertebrates reach much larger sizes than their shallow water relatives. A striking example is the giant isopod, resembling an enormous woodlouse, which can grow up to half a meter in length. One of the reasons for this is the low temperature, which slows metabolism and increases lifespan, allowing more time for growth. These giants slowly roam the seabed like ancient battleships, searching for carrion. Besides giants, the seabed is also inhabited by architects. Sponges, some of the most primitive multicellular animals, can form vast fields and reefs at great depths, resembling underwater forests. Glass sponges, for example, build their skeletons from silicon dioxide, creating complex, intricate structures similar to works of fiber optics. These skeletons conduct light so efficiently that scientists are studying them to create new telecommunication technologies. These ancient creatures, without knowing it, created a natural internet long before the appearance of humans, transmitting light in the darkness. These sponge fields serve as a home for a multitude of other organisms, creating oases of biodiversity on the desolate abyssal plains. Some sponges, such as the harp sponge, have evolved from filter feeders into predators. Its body is shaped like a candelabra or a harp, covered in tiny hooks. When a small crustacean touches these hooks, it becomes entangled, and the sponge slowly envelops and digests it. This is an example of how, in conditions of food scarcity, evolution finds the most unexpected solutions, turning a peaceful filter feeder into a passive yet deadly hunter. In these same underwater gardens grow deep-sea corals, whose life flows more slowly than stone grows. Unlike their tropical counterparts, they do not need sunlight and lack symbiotic algae. They feed by capturing food particles from the passing water with their tiny polyps. Some of these corals, particularly the black corals of the genus Leopathes, are among the longest living organisms on the planet. The age of individual colonies is estimated to be over 4,000 years. They are living witnesses to the rise and fall of human civilizations, silently growing in the darkness. The movement of water on the seabed, which feeds these corals, is not a chaotic process but part of a great planetary respiration. Deep currents driven by differences in temperature and salinity form a global ocean conveyor. Cold, dense water in the polar regions sinks to the bottom and begins its slow journey along the floor of the world's oceans, circling the continents. This journey can take up to 1,000 years. These invisible rivers carry oxygen and nutrients to the most remote corners of the abyss, sustaining life and regulating the entire planet's climate. The ocean floor is the heart of the global circulatory system. Sometimes these currents create amazing shapes on the seabed, drawing patterns on a scale invisible to the eye. Underwater dunes or sand waves can reach tens of meters in height and stretch for kilometers, like a frozen storm. They slowly migrate across the bottom, moving at a speed of several meters per year under the influence of bottom currents. Their existence proves that the ocean floor is not a static, but a dynamic landscape, constantly changing under the influence of unseen forces. It is a desert where the wind is replaced by the slow but powerful flow of water. In some places, the seafloor is covered not just with waves, but with strange patterns and spirals, as if someone had left mysterious messages in the sand. For example, the male Japanese pufferfish creates perfect circles with radial patterns on the sandy bottom, true mandalas. He toils for hours and days, swimming right at the bottom and stirring up sand with his fins to create this intricate ornament to attract a female. It is not just a nest, but a work of art, a demonstration of his strength and diligence. After the female lays her eggs in the center of the circle, this work of art is slowly destroyed by the current. Not only living creatures leave behind tracks full of mystery. On the floor of the Pacific Ocean, in the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, mysterious tracks left by unknown organisms have been discovered. These furrows and pits, named Paleodictyon, form complex, almost hexagonal patterns resembling honeycombs. Scientists still do not know what creature creates them or why. Perhaps it is a system of burrows or traps, or maybe a fossil trace of behavior, frozen for millions of years. These patterns are a silent enigma, inscribed on the seabed and still unsolved. Underwater volcanoes, whose fiery hearts beat beneath the mass of water, help to unravel the mysteries of the deep. Over 80% of Earth's volcanic activity occurs underwater, hidden from our eyes. Submarine eruptions form new sections of oceanic crust at mid-ocean ridges and create underwater mountains, or guyats. When red-hot lava meets cold water, it solidifies, forming what is known as pillow lava, rounded structures resembling pillows or loaves of bread. These are the building blocks from which a new world is continuously created on the ocean floor. Some of these underwater volcanoes are so active that their peaks break through the surface, forming new islands of ash and fire. The island of Surtsey off the coast of Iceland was born from such an eruption in 1963. Scientists were given a unique opportunity to observe how life colonizes sterile land from scratch. The first to appear were bacteria and mosses, then insects carried by the wind, and finally, plant seeds brought by birds. This is an evolutionary laboratory in real time, showing how life clings to any opportunity, turning stone into a garden. Other underwater mountains, guyats, never reach the surface or, over time, sink beneath the water due to the movement of tectonic plates. Their peaks, once islands with palm trees and birds, are sheared off by waves, forming flat plateaus. Now, these peaks lie at depths of hundreds and thousands of meters, covered in sediment and deep-sea corals. They are the ghosts of ancient islands, sunken worlds that hold the memory of a time when they saw the sun. Each such mountain is an underwater Atlantis, created by nature itself, not by myth. The deepest points on the planet are oceanic trenches, formed where one tectonic plate goes under another in the process of subduction. The Mariana Trench is the most famous of them, its depth reaching almost 11 kilometers. If we were to place Mount Everest there, its summit would still be covered by more than 2 kilometers of water. It is a world of absolute darkness, freezing cold, and crushing pressure. But even here in the Challenger Deep, living organisms have been discovered, tiny crustaceans and single-celled organisms, proving that life has no boundaries. Among the inhabitants of these trenches are amphipods, small, shrimp-like crustaceans that have found a surprising way to survive. Scientists have discovered that aluminum accumulates in their bodies, which they extract from the marine sediment. They use this metal to create aluminum armor, a gel-like shield that protects their calcium carbonate exoskeleton from dissolving in the acidic environment of the deep waters. These tiny creatures learned metallurgy millions of years before humans in order to survive in the most inhospitable conditions on the planet. The trenches are also inhabited by xenophyophores, giant single-celled organisms that can reach 20 centimeters in diameter. It is a single cell with multiple nuclei, a true giant of the microbial world. They build themselves shell-like houses from sediment and minerals, gluing them together with their own slime. These fragile structures serve as both protection and, possibly, a way to capture food from the slow currents. Imagine a single-celled creature the size of a saucer, building itself a home at the bottom of the deepest canyon on the planet. This is life in its strangest and most amazing form. The seabed is also the final resting place for countless ships that have become part of its history. Sunken vessels, from ancient Greek triremes to World War II battleships, lie on the bottom, slowly becoming part of the marine landscape. Over time, they become artificial reefs, providing shelter and substrate for hundreds of species of fish, corals, and sponges. Wood is eaten away by worms, while metal is covered in corrosion and becomes overgrown with life, creating new forms. Human tragedy becomes a quiet home for the ocean, and the death of a ship gives rise to new life. Some of these shipwrecks preserve unique time capsules, sealed by the deep. For example, in the Baltic Sea, thanks to low salinity and temperature, wood and organic matter are preserved for centuries. Onboard ships that sank in the 17th-18th centuries, perfectly preserved bottles of wine and champagne have been found. The pressure at depth kept the corks sealed, and the constant low temperature created ideal conditions for aging. A few bottles brought to the surface turned out to be drinkable, offering tasters a taste of a bygone era. Besides real ships, the seabed has also given rise to many myths about sunken cities and civilizations. The legend of Atlantis is the most famous of them, an eternal search for a utopia under the water. Although Atlantis itself is most likely a myth, traces of ancient settlements, flooded due to sea level rise after the last ice age, are indeed found on the ocean floor. Off the coasts of India, Japan, and in the Mediterranean Sea, remnants of structures, roads, and artifacts are found, reminding us that the coastline we know today is but a fleeting frame in the long history of the planet. One such real sunken city is Heraklion, an Egyptian port that went underwater about 200 years ago after an earthquake and soil liquefaction. It was completely hidden under a layer of silt and sand until it was discovered in the early 21st century. Archaeologists raised giant statues of pharaohs, sarcophagi, hundreds of anchors, and gold coins from the seabed. The city, once considered a legend, turned out to be real. The seabed preserved it in the finest detail, protecting it from the destructive effects of time and air, becoming its silent guardian. Sometimes the seabed itself creates structures that resemble ruins, playing with our imagination. The so-called Bimini Road off the coast of the Bahamas is an underwater formation of rectangular limestone blocks laid in two parallel lines. Many believe it to be the remains of an ancient road or wall built by an unknown civilization. However, geologists believe it is a natural geological phenomenon, the result of rock fracturing. The ocean floor is a master of illusions, creating order out of chaos and making us question the boundaries between nature and art. In the complete darkness of the seabed, where there is no change between day and night, many organisms have their own internal clocks. Deep-sea shrimp living near hydrothermal vents have circadian rhythms, despite the absence of sunlight. Scientists suggest that their biological clocks may be synchronized with the cycles of tides, which cause small changes in currents and water chemistry. Even in eternal night, life submits to the invisible rhythms of the cosmos, to the pulse of the moon and the sun, which reaches them in the form of barely perceptible oscillations. This pulse is also felt in the greatest migration on the planet, which occurs every night. Trillions of tiny creatures, plankton, krill, small fish, rise from the depths to the surface to feed under the cover of darkness. And at dawn, they sink back into the safe darkness of the twilight zone. This giant living elevator, called the deep scattering layer, mixes the water, transports nutrients, and is a key link in the ocean's food chain. The ocean breathes, inhaling life with the onset of night and exhaling it with the first rays of the sun. This living fog, rising and falling in the water column, was for a long time a ghost on the screens of early sonars. During World War II, sonar operators were astonished to discover a false bottom that rose to the surface at night and descended hundreds of meters during the day. They called it the Eltonin layer, not understanding its nature. Only later did it become clear that this was not a geological phenomenon, but a colossal accumulation of living organisms whose bodies reflected sound waves. Thus, the greatest migration on the planet was detected not by the eye, but by the ear, like a mysterious echo, like the beating of the ocean's invisible heart. Among these migrants are creatures capable of amazing feats of invisibility. Hatchetfish, which inhabit the twilight zone, have learned to become invisible to predators below. Their bellies are covered with photophores that emit light, matching the intensity and color of the faint light penetrating from above. This is called counter-illumination. A predator looking up from below does not see the dark silhouette of the fish against the bright surface. It simply dissolves in the light, turning into a living mirage, into pure radiance. In this world of halftones and deception lives the blobfish, which has become a symbol of the strange beauty of the depths. Its gelatinous body has a density slightly less than that of water, allowing it to float just above the seabed, expending almost no energy. On land, under the force of gravity and the absence of pressure, its body sags, giving it its famous doleful expression. But in its native environment, under immense pressure, it looks completely different, like a normal fish. It is the embodiment of adaptation to its environment, a creature designed to be weightless in a world of unbearable heaviness. But not all grace in the abyss appears gentle. Sometimes it hides in sheer disproportionality, in hungry anticipation. Meet the gulper eel, or pelican eel, a creature that seems to consist almost entirely of a mouth. Its enormous, stretchable mouth, resembling a net, can swallow prey significantly larger than the eel itself. Its body, however, is thin and long, like a whip, and ends in a luminous organ that may serve as a lure. It is a living trap, a floating snare that drifts slowly in the darkness, the embodiment of the abyss's hunger, its ever-open mouth. And if the pelican eel's mouth is a living net, there are also those who have turned their own stomach into a bottomless net. The black swallower, a small deep-sea fish, possesses the incredible ability to swallow prey 10 times its own weight and twice its own length. Its stomach can stretch to unimaginable sizes, accommodating the victim whole. Sometimes its greed plays a cruel trick on it. If the prey is too large, it begins to decompose faster than it can be digested. The resulting gases lift the swallower to the surface, where it is found dead, with a bloated belly. This is a silent parable about greed, told in the depths. Weightlessness and lightness are not the words that come to mind at the sight of the Greenland shark. This slow-moving giant, inhabiting the cold waters of the Arctic and North Atlantic, can descend to depths of over 2 kilometers. It is the longest living vertebrate on the planet. The age of some individuals can exceed 500 years, which is determined by radiocarbon dating of the eye lens. These sharks were born in Shakespeare's time and swam in the ocean while empires rose and fell on land. They are living archives, in whose eyes centuries of human history are reflected. The eyes of these sharks are often afflicted by parasitic copepods, which attach to the cornea and feed on its tissue, rendering the shark almost blind. However, in a world of eternal darkness, sight is not so important. The shark relies on its phenomenal sense of smell and other sensory organs to find food, mostly carrion, such as the carcasses of whales or seals. A parasite that would be a death sentence for another predator is here merely a minor inconvenience, another strange form of symbiosis where blindness is no obstacle to a life half a millennium long. The ocean floor is not only a home for the living, but also an endless cemetery, preserving the memory of the past. Shark teeth, for example, are constantly shed and replaced with new ones. Over its lifetime, a single shark can go through tens of thousands of teeth. Sinking to the bottom, they fossilize and are preserved for millions of years. Some areas of the seabed are literally strewn with the teeth of the megalodon, a gigantic prehistoric shark the size of a bus. Each such tooth is a greeting from the past, tangible proof of the existence of monsters that once ruled the ocean. In addition to teeth, otoliths are also found on the seafloor, tiny ear stones made of calcium carbonate located in the inner ear of fish. They help fish maintain balance and orient themselves in space. Like tree rings, otoliths grow by forming layers, which can be used to determine a fish's age and the conditions in which it lived, including water temperature and its chemical composition. By studying fossilized otoliths, scientists can reconstruct a picture of ancient marine ecosystems and learn what kinds of fish swam in the oceans millions of years ago. Entire forests also exist on the seafloor, but they are made not of trees, but of sea lilies and sea pens. These are not plants, but animals from the class of echinoderms, relatives of starfish. Sea lilies are attached to the seafloor by a long stalk and catch food with their feathery arms, which resemble fern fronds swaying in the current. Sea pens, on the other hand, stick out of the silt like old-fashioned quill pens. Their colonies can create surreal landscapes on the seafloor, swaying in time with the slow bottom currents, like an underwater meadow in slow motion. Yeti crabs hide and hunt in these underwater forests. These crustaceans, which live near hydrothermal vents, are covered in long bristles on which they farm entire colonies of bacteria. The crab periodically brings its claws to its mouth and shears this harvest, feeding on it. It is an underwater farmer that carries its garden with it. These bacteria also help it neutralize toxic compounds found in the water from the vents. This is another example of how life forms alliances to conquer the most hostile worlds, turning its own body into a garden. Some creatures use not only chemistry but also physics to create beauty. Comb jellies, which resemble jellyfish but are not, move using comb plates, rows of tiny cilia that beat in unison. When light hits these constantly moving cilia, it is refracted, creating shimmering rainbow flashes that run along the animal's body. This is not bioluminescence, but pure physics, a play of light on a living structure. The comb jelly swims through the darkness, shrouded in its own rainbow glow like a living gemstone. Others, conversely, strive for complete invisibility, to dissolve into the darkness. Deep-sea fish, such as dragonfish, have evolved skin that absorbs more than 99% of the light that falls on it. This makes them practically invisible in the dark, even in the beam of a submersible. Their skin is covered with special nanostructures of melanosomes that scatter and absorb light, preventing it from reflecting. This is a natural analog of the material vantablack, the most perfect camouflage coating created not in a laboratory, but in the abyss, in the eternal arms race between predator and prey. This abyss also has its own hunters with unique weaponry, taken to an absurd extreme. The viperfish has teeth so long and needle-like that they do not fit inside its mouth. Its lower fangs pass along the sides of its head, almost reaching its eyes when its jaw is closed. To bite, it throws its head back and opens its jaw almost 180 degrees. Its first vertebra serves as a shock absorber, absorbing the impact of the attack. This is a blood-chilling mechanism honed by millions of years of evolution under conditions of fierce competition for scarce food. But not all hunters are so aggressive. The frilled shark, a living fossil, looks like a hybrid of a shark and an eel, its body serpentine and flexible. It hunts by bending its body like a snake and making a sudden lunge at its prey. Its jaws are lined with rows of 300 small, sharp, backward-pointing teeth that prevent the victim from escaping. It lives at great depths and is rarely seen by humans, remaining a ghost from prehistoric seas that still glides in the darkness, unchanged for millions of years. Giant sea stars also glide in the darkness, some of which can have up to 50 arms, resembling living suns. These predators crawl slowly along the bottom, devouring everything in their path, from sponges to corals, by everting their stomachs and digesting their prey on the spot. If a sea star loses an arm, it can regenerate it. Moreover, from a single detached arm, if a part of the central disc remains, a whole new sea star can grow. This is almost immortality, the ability to be reborn from one's own part, a gift that nature has bestowed upon these slow-moving kings of the seafloor. Dumbo octopuses, the deepest living of all octopuses, can also be called kings of the seafloor. These charming creatures get their name from the large, ear-like fins on the sides of their heads, which they flap to move, like the cartoon elephant flying over the abyss. They live at extreme depths of up to 7,000 meters, where they hover over the bottom in search of small crustaceans and worms. Their slow, graceful dance in the darkness is a reminder that even in the harshest and most oppressive conditions, tenderness, grace, and beauty can exist. But not all the beauty of the abyss is so obvious. Sometimes it hides in the most bizarre forms, like that of the worm nicknamed the flying buttocks. This organism, Chaetopterus pugoporcinus, floats in the water column, and its body consists of two spherical segments resembling what gave it its informal name. Scientists are still unsure whether this is an adult specimen or the larva of some larger worm. It simply drifts in the gloom, secreting bioluminescent mucus, a small and funny absurdity in an ocean of serious and harsh adaptations. It is evolution's smile, its quiet and strange joke. This beauty also manifests on a microscopic scale, in the building blocks of the seafloor itself. Diatoms are single-celled organisms that build themselves shells of silicon dioxide, the same material as glass. These shells, called frustules, have an incredibly complex and beautiful structure, with thousands of tiny pores and patterns unique to each species. When diatoms die, their shells sink to the bottom, forming diatomaceous ooze. Under a microscope, this ooze looks like a treasure trove full of miniature works of art made of glass. This ooze, accumulating over millions of years, forms a rock known as diatomite, or kieselguhr. It is used as a filter for water and beverages, a mild abrasive in toothpaste, and even in Alfred Nobel's dynamite, who soaked it in nitroglycerin for stabilization. Thus, the microscopic glass houses built by tiny algae in ancient oceans became part of one of humanity's most powerful technologies. The connections in this world can be the most unexpected and strong, linking the microcosm and the macrocosm. The connection between the top and the bottom is also evident in the phenomenon of wandering stones on the ocean floor. On the floor of the Arctic Ocean, long furrows are found that stretch for hundreds of meters, and at the end of each furrow lies a stone or boulder. These stones could not have been moved by currents. The mystery was solved when scientists realized that stones freeze into the ice in shallow waters. This ice then drifts, and when it melts, the stone falls to the bottom. But sometimes it touches the bottom while still trapped in ice and is dragged through the silt, leaving a long trail. These are ice ships, transporting stone passengers across the ocean. Living creatures can also be passengers, hitchhiking across the ocean. Some organisms use so-called rafting, traveling long distances on floating objects, such as pumice from underwater volcanoes, algae, or even plastic debris. This is how species can colonize new territories, crossing oceans and settling on remote islands or seamounts. This proves that the ocean is not a barrier, but a road, a global network connecting the most remote corners of the planet, and life will always find a way to travel. In the most remote corners, in the deepest trenches, scientists have discovered viruses that challenge the very definition of life. Giant viruses, comparable in size to bacteria, infect amoebas and other protozoa. Their genome is so complex that some scientists suggest they may represent a fourth domain of life, alongside bacteria, archaea, and eukaryotes. Even at the very bottom, in a world seemingly far from disease, an eternal war is being waged on a microscopic level, shaping evolution from its very foundation. This war also gives rise to surprising defense mechanisms. Sea cucumbers, or holothurians, which crawl slowly along the bottom, can eject part of their internal organs, so-called Cuvierian tubules, through their anus when threatened. These sticky and sometimes toxic threads entangle and immobilize a predator, such as a crab or fish. After this, the holothurian slowly crawls away and eventually regenerates its lost organs. This is an extreme form of self-sacrifice, where a creature gives up a part of itself to preserve the whole and then is reborn anew. Some holothurians have gone even further in their hospitality. Symbiotic fish of the genus Carapace, or pearlfish, can live in their digestive and respiratory systems. They use the holothurian's body as a safe shelter, swimming out only to find food. This is one of the strangest examples of commensalism, where one organism lives inside another without causing it significant harm. The ocean floor is full of such unexpected alliances and tenants who find a home in the most unusual places. One of the most surreal tenants is the so-called headless chicken monster, a species of deep-sea holothurian Enypniastes eximia. This creature is purple, with a translucent body through which its internal organs are visible, and webbing that allows it to swim. It drifts slowly in the water column, periodically descending to the bottom to feed. Its appearance is so unusual that it seems like a character from a dream, a fantasy of nature that has accidentally drifted into reality. It is living proof that the strangest images of our subconscious already exist in the silence of the ocean depths. Symbioses can also be luminous, creating living lanterns in the darkness. The flashlight fish has organs under its eyes filled with bioluminescent bacteria that glow continuously. The fish can control this light using a special shutter of dark tissue, which it can raise and lower like an eyelid. It uses these headlights to find food in the dark, communicate with its own kind, and scare off predators by flashing them in a specific rhythm. It is a living lantern that decides for itself when to turn on the light and when to plunge into darkness. Darkness and light also struggle at the level of physical senses, giving birth to new ways of seeing. Some deep-sea shrimp living near hydrothermal vents have learned to see heat. They have a special lensless organ on their backs that detects the faint infrared radiation emitted by the hot water from black smokers. This allows them to navigate in murky currents and avoid getting too close to the scorching jets. They see not light, but invisible heat, another sense born in the extreme conditions of eternal night. Conditions also change over time, and the seabed holds traces of catastrophic events of the past. For example, a thin layer of iridium found in marine sediments around the world is evidence of a giant asteroid impact 66 million years ago, which led to the extinction of the dinosaurs. This thin layer of metal, rare on Earth but common in asteroids, is a scar on the planet's body, a reminder of how an event that lasted a moment can forever change the course of life. The ocean floor remembers this fiery rain. The seabed also remembers the ice ages, when the world was bound by cold. When huge glaciers covered the continents, they scraped rocks and boulders from them. Moving toward the ocean, the glaciers carried these rocks with them. When icebergs broke off and drifted out to sea, they melted, and the rocks fell to the bottom, hundreds of kilometers from their original home. These drop stones are geological orphans scattered across the ocean floor, witnesses to the era of the Great Glaciation, when ice was the planet's main sculptor. In some places, the seabed sweats oil, releasing dark streams into the cold water. Natural oil and gas seeps are a common phenomenon in hydrocarbon-rich areas, such as the Gulf of Mexico. Unique ecosystems form around these seeps, where bacteria feed on the oil, and they, in turn, are eaten by other organisms, such as mussels and worms. Life is so adaptive that it has learned to consume what is poison to most, turning pollution into a source of energy, the basis of a food chain. The energy of the seabed can also be electrical, invisible but tangible. Some fish, such as rays and sharks, possess electroreception, the ability to detect the weak electric fields generated by the muscle contractions of other living creatures. This allows them to find prey buried in the sand without seeing or hearing it. They do not see the prey itself, but its electrical shadow, its life impulse. For them, the world is not a picture, but a constantly changing electrical circuit, full of hidden signals. Electricity can also be a weapon, devastating and silent. An electric ray can generate a discharge of up to 220 volts to stun prey or defend against a predator. Its body is a living battery, composed of thousands of modified muscle cells called electrocytes, stacked in columns. When the ray attacks, it creates a powerful electrical impulse capable of paralyzing a large fish. It is a master of bioelectricity, a silent thunderer of the deep, commanding an invisible force. The depths also hide acoustic illusions that deceive the ear. Sometimes, sounds from the surface or other sources reflect off different layers of water with varying temperatures and salinity, as well as off the seabed, creating sound mirages. A submarine might see a false target on its sonar, which is actually an echo from a distant underwater mountain. The ocean floor is a room of distorting mirrors, but for sound, not light, where an echo can be more real than the object itself. In this room of mirrors, there are also its own gardeners, who tend to their sustenance. Some species of fish, like reef damselfish, cultivate gardens of specific types of algae. They actively weed out undesirable algae species that try to grow on their patch and fiercely defend their plot from other herbivorous fish. This is one of the simplest forms of agriculture, which arose long before humans. The farmer fish patiently grazes its underwater meadows, providing itself with food. Meadows can also consist of seagrass, the only flowering plants that have managed to fully adapt to life in salt water. Their root systems stabilize the seabed, preventing erosion, and their dense thickets serve as nurseries for numerous species of fish and invertebrates. One species, Posidonia oceanica, in the Mediterranean Sea can form giant clonal colonies. The age of one such colony is estimated at 100,000 years, making it one of the oldest living organisms on Earth, a silent witness to all of human history. The oldest things can also be the footprints left by our ancestors. On the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Crete, fossilized footprints left by hominids more than 5.7 million years ago were discovered. At that time, the Mediterranean Sea had almost completely dried up as a result of a geological event, and its floor was a salt desert. These footprints are a ghostly reminder that where waves now splash and fish now swim, our distant ancestors once walked on cracked earth, leaving their imprints on future history. Modern creatures with amazing patience also walk on the seabed. The tripod fish stands on the bottom on 3 long, stiff rays, 2 from its pelvic fins and 1 from its tail fin, raising itself above the silt. It stands motionless, facing the current, and waits for small crustaceans to touch its long pectoral fins, which it holds splayed out in front of it like a net or sensitive antenna. It is a living tripod, a patient fisherman that has become part of the seabed itself, merging with it in motionless anticipation. But it is not only the silt that serves as a support for life. The water column itself can become one. Drifting within it is the recently discovered squid worm, Tuthedodrilus sami, a creature so strange that scientists had to create a new family for it. It resembles a worm but possesses a dozen tentacles on its head, long and writhing like the hair of Medusa gorgon. It swims by, flexing its body, and uses these appendages for respiration and possibly for gathering food. It is a living question posed by evolution, the answer to which we are only beginning to seek in the dark waters of Indonesia. The sounds it emits also become part of the seabed. There is a mysterious low-frequency hum that can be detected on the ocean floor worldwide, known as the voice of the earth. Its source is still unknown. It is not whales, not earthquakes, and not human activity. Some scientists suggest it could be the sound created by the microscopic oscillations of the planet itself, or the complex interaction of ocean waves over vast areas. It is the voice of the planet, its background noise, its eternal deep breath. This breath sometimes turns into a storm, even at the bottom. There are benthic storms, powerful episodic currents that can occur on the abyssal plains, usually considered calm. They are capable of lifting and transporting huge masses of sediment, erasing traces and creating new landscapes, like a sandstorm in a desert. These storms can last for weeks. They are invisible hurricanes, raging in complete silence and darkness, a reminder that even in the calmest places, there is a hidden, dormant, and destructive force. Force is also hidden in the smallest, in the invisible. Prochlorococcus is the smallest and most numerous photosynthesizing bacterium on the planet, a true dwarf holding up the world. A single drop of seawater can contain hundreds of thousands of them. Despite their size, their total biomass is enormous, and together they produce up to 20% of all the oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. We take every fifth breath thanks to these invisible points of life floating in the upper layers of the ocean. Their existence is the foundation of life on the planet. These points of life, upon dying, sink to the bottom and become part of the sedimentary rock. The chalk we use to write with at school is, in essence, the compressed skeletons of microscopic algae called coccolithophores that lived in the ocean millions of years ago. The famous white cliffs of Dover are composed of them. When we hold a piece of chalk in our hands, we are holding the ancient seabed, billions of tiny lives turned into stone, into dust capable of leaving a mark. Stones on the seafloor can tell stories of invisible forces. Some rocks raised from the bottom contain tiny crystals of magnetite, which, as the rock formed, aligned themselves with the Earth's magnetic field, like compass needles. By studying their orientation in layers of different ages, scientists can learn how the planet's magnetic field has changed and even reversed in the past. These stones are natural compasses, frozen in time and pointing to a north that no longer exists, to a pole that has long since shifted. Sometimes, perfectly round holes are found on the seabed in mollusk shells, as if drilled by a thin bit. This is the work of cone snails, predatory mollusks that possess a deadly venom. They use their radula, similar to a diamond-tipped drill, to bore a hole in another snail's shell and then inject a paralyzing venom and digestive enzymes through it. They leave behind an empty shell with a perfect hole, the calling card of a skilled and patient killer. A killer can also be a star, slowly crawling across the reef. The crown-of-thorns starfish feeds on corals, and its outbreaks caused by natural cycles or anthropogenic influence can devastate entire reefs. However, it is also part of a natural cycle. After its outbreak, more resilient species of coral can settle in the cleared space, which in the long term increases overall diversity. Destruction here is a form of creation, a painful but necessary process of renewal and generational change. Renewal also occurs at the chemical level, at the very foundations of existence. On the ocean floor, processes of serpentinization take place, where water reacts with olivine-rich mantle rocks, releasing hydrogen and methane. Some scientists believe that these processes, which do not require volcanic activity, could have created ideal conditions for the origin of life, cradles with a constant source of energy and chemical building blocks. Life may have been born not in a bubbling cauldron, but in a quiet, cool rock on the floor of the ancient ocean. Rocks can also sing, if one listens with the right ear. In some places, with underwater canyons and strong currents, water passing through them can create infrasonic vibrations, similar to the low notes of an organ. This is the song of the ocean, which the human ear cannot hear, but which can be recorded by sensitive hydrophones. The entire ocean basin resonates like a giant musical instrument played by an invisible performer, the very movement of water, wind, and the planet. Ice can also be the performer, telling of its state through sound. When icebergs calve, roll over, or scrape along the seabed, they produce unique sounds, from a low-frequency hum to high-pitched chirps and cracks. Scientists are learning to recognize these sounds to track the movement and melting of glaciers in polar regions. Seabed acoustics are becoming a tool for monitoring the planet's health. We listen to how the ice breathes, moves, and groans on the other side of the world, and its voice reaches us through the column of water. Among the ice and darkness in the cold waters lives the firefly squid, creating extravaganzas of light. Every spring, millions of these small squid gather in Toyama Bay in Japan to spawn. Their bodies are dotted with photophores, and when they come together, they create an incredible light show on the water's surface and near the bottom, turning the bay into a shimmering starry sky. It is a fleeting festival of light, an annual miracle, reminding us that even the smallest creatures, when gathered together, can create a great and unforgettable beauty. Beauty and mystery. This is the essence of the seabed, the last unexplored continent on our planet. It covers 2/3 of the Earth's surface, yet we have explored it less than the surface of the Moon or Mars. Every time we lower a camera or a bathyscaphe into the abyss, we find new species, new landscapes, new riddles that challenge our understanding of life. It is the last great frontier on our own planet, a world of boundless discoveries awaiting its hour beneath the water's depths. In this world, even sand can be alive, or at least composed of the remains of living creatures. Foraminifera are single-celled organisms that build shells from calcium carbonate. Some species, found on the beaches of Okinawa, are shaped like tiny stars. The sand on such beaches is almost entirely made up of billions of these microscopic starlets. Every step on such a beach is a step on an ancient graveyard and, at the same time, on a starry sky that has fallen to earth and been polished by the waves. But life exists not only on the surface of this silt, it goes deeper, into the very flesh of the planet, into the world beneath the seabed. This is the so-called deep biosphere, consisting of microbes that live in the pores of sedimentary rocks and even in the oceanic crust at kilometer depths. Their metabolism is so slow that a single cell might divide once in 1,000 years. They feed on chemical reactions with the rock, existing in a state close to suspended animation. This is a sleeping kingdom, whose total mass may exceed all life on the surface. It is the dark matter of the biosphere, silent and ubiquitous. And while we fall asleep, down there, in a world without time, a slow, eternal life continues. Marine snow continues its quiet dance of descent. Hydrothermal vents continue to build their dark towers, like cities for ghosts. Creatures woven from light and darkness hunt, communicate, and love in a world without dawns and sunsets. The ocean floor is not just a place on a map. It is a state. It is the deep, slow sleep of the planet itself, which we are only beginning to glimpse in our own dreams. We have come a long way, descending to the very bottom of the world, into a realm of eternal night and crushing pressure. We have seen that emptiness is an illusion and silence is filled with voices. Life here takes the most bizarre and resilient forms, reminding us that beauty can blossom in the most incredible conditions. May these images of the deep stay with you, like a quiet echo in the depths of your consciousness. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, I invite you to leave a like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here, one sleepy soul at a time. And now, just breathe. Let your eyes grow heavy and let the quiet gardens of the deep lull your thoughts. Good night.